I have been making games for several years now, and started working on more projects than I can count. Projects that I have not and probably will never finish, either because the scope is way too big for one person, or because I end up completely unmotivated after implementing half of the core mechanics. And that's the reason I'm making this devlog, to hold me accountable so that hopefully I don't just bail on this project as well. This is Blankie's adventure. You play as Blankie, a white, blank blob with feet. Blankie has one ability: he can dash. This dashing ability is going to be the #1 way Blankie can interact with the world around him. The most obvious use for the dash is using it to travel over holes and pools of water. Now, if you've played Hyper Light Drifter, you might notice some similarities between the games. But my game is actually completely different. Blankie can swim, and the Drifter can. In all seriousness though, I'm getting a lot of inspiration from Hyper Light Drifter, so my game will probably end up being sort of the same genre, but with my own twist. Other than just dashing over holes, Blankie can also dash into walls to bounce off of them. When Blankie bounces, his dash is completely reset, as well as giving him a slight speed bonus for the next dash. This speed bonus can stack several times if he keeps hitting walls, and it is visualized by his trail changing color from blue to pink. Since the dash is undoubtedly the most important mechanic in the game, I wanted to feel as fair as possible to the player. Because of this, the dash will sometimes help the player traverse gaps in the ground if Blankie is close to the edge of a safe platform by extending the dash range slightly. Blankie will also sometimes stop dashing if he has just jumped over a gap and made it safely to a platform, but would normally continue dashing into another gap. These small but important functionalities that makes the dash easier to use probably makes up about 75% of the player movement script, and the dash is still far from perfect. One example of this is if you try dashing in a small corridor. I still haven't come up with a satisfying way to deal with this. One idea could be to just stop dashing if you're bouncing too rapidly, but for now you can at least stop by clicking the dash button again. Before I tell you more about Blankie, the devlog norm seems to be to insert a short montage of food, coffee or the outside world in the middle of the video. So here's today's dinner. I want the combat in Blankie's adventure to be completely centered around the dash. The only way for Blankie to deal damage is to dash into the enemies. The combat system is still very bare bones, and I'm still unsure exactly what it will look like. So far, all I have is a very simple enemy that follows you and deals damage to you if you touch it. I have some ideas, however, and I will share them as soon as I have implemented something worthwhile. A couple other things that I've added so far is a button that makes walls appear when pushed, a simple dialogue system, or maybe a monologue system since Blankie can't currently speak. And as mentioned earlier, Blankie can swim. While swimming, Blankie can't dash and he can only exit the water by climbing some stairs. I think it would be interesting to add some kind of water enemies later on. This pretty much wraps up everything I've added to the game so far, but I have to mention that everything you have seen is subject to change since the game is still very early in the development process. Blankie's adventure is for example just a project name, though I'll probably just forget to come up with something better. I also have many ideas but very few concrete plans for further development, as you can see on my Trello board. So I would very much appreciate any feedback or ideas that you have. Remember to click subscribe if you think the game looks interesting and you want to follow its development. I'll try to upload another devlog as soon as I have something to show, and if that video never comes, then you know what happened.